Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the sneak peek view of Volume 32 Tech Radar. I'm May, your host. I'm Regional Head of Tech for Thoughtworks APAC based in Sydney. So today we actually have Vanya and me joining me together actually to share what's coming in Volume 32 Tech Radar. So now I'm going to hand it over to Vanya and me to introduce yourself.
You so much, May. Hi, everyone. I'm Vanya. I'm the head of tech for Thoughtworks in India. And as May mentioned, I'm one of the Doppler members who puts together the radar. This is my fifth volume. I think a small trivia about my experience. And I'm really excited to be sharing some of my favorite blips with all of you in the next 1 hour.
Hi everyone, my name is Ni Wang. I'm located in China. I'm a lead consultant in Thoughtworks, and I've been on the radar as part of the group before, and this is actually another new addition that after a while I come back. I'm very excited to be here to share some of my favorite beliefs as well. Yeah.
For today's session, we're actually going to have Vanya and Yi to share their favorite themes and beliefs. For those of you who didn't know about Tech Radar, I believe most of you're here because you know about Tech Radar. And Tech Radar is it's a publishing we release twice a year. So that is based on our practical experience from our global team. And so it's initially created actually to help our internal team to track the trends. And actually, just an interesting fact for you, like the first radar was published back in 2010. So it's almost 15 years now. Like to say, the first radar is actually we only had 38 blips. I think for this one, we had 105 blips. So another fun fact for you is just like at the position radar, we got over 50% of blips are related with AI. Not surprising, right? General, when we look at radar, so you will look at the different runs we're introducing. You start for the runs around adopt. So that means our team actually had like a practical experience in like production, we got a super positive result. So we think you should adopt it if this is related to in your area. So trial is actually the next run is around like we got team have used that in production, and there has been like a positive result in that space. We say it definitely was to watch for. For assess, I think if you are interested to know the horizon, what's coming in from the new trend. So that's definitely the run you should be watching for. I think hold run is an interesting one. So we definitely, this is basically what we, at Thoughtworks team, with our suggestion is to, if you're going to use any technology, techniques or tools, framework there, proceed with caution. So that's really just a brief introduction around our tech radar. So in every tech radar, we also identify a few themes in that space. So basically, so that's what we're going to today. Before I actually hand this over to one year around this, just like to say, as we go, post your questions in Q&A. So we'll try to pick it up along the way. Just this will help us actually especially when we go to QA sessions, that will be super useful. So without further ado, hand over to my colleague Vanya to talk about my favorite theme today, supervised coding agents. Like there has been many talks about this is the end of programming, is it? Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, May. I think just for our listeners, what exactly is a theme, right? I think you all know what a blip is, but a lot of times during the intense 1 week conversations, there are a lot of interesting conversations and blips around a specific topic. And that usually ends up becoming a theme towards the end of the 1 week Doppler face-to-face, where we are discussing as a group across the globe on what should be part of the radar or not. And as you can see, 50% of the blips in this version are related to AI, and a lot of them are around coding assistants and coding agents. And therefore, without a doubt, that emerged as a top theme for this specific volume. And with that, as May said, one of my favorites as well. The first theme that I want to talk about is the supervised coding agents. As I mentioned earlier, right, AI for software delivery is gaining a lot of traction. I think it's the #1 topic on the CIOs and CTOs' mind, and of course for all developers and technologists out there as well. And I truly believe that it's an area that's very ripe for innovation. And therefore, these coding assistants, they continue to expand their capabilities. These tools now allow developers to drive implementation directly from, using an AI chat right from their IDE, whether using Visual Studio Code or using IntelliJ IDEA from JetBrains, right? And this mode of using an agent or assistant within an IDE integrated in a chat format is also known as an agentic mode, right? Sometimes you also call it as prompt to code or chat-based programming, and there can be multiple names that you can give to it. But what's interesting is that these AI assistants, they go beyond just answering your questions, right? Now they have a lot of capability to navigate and modify code. They can update the tests. They can execute the commands in the command line, fix compilation issues proactively, even linting issues for that matter. And they have whole suite of access to browser use or computer use with a lot of new models and new capabilities coming in. And therefore, it allows for a very interesting experience of using AI coding assistants for building software and debugging software for that matter. Although there is a lot of skepticism when it comes to using these agents in a fully autonomous mode, right, for large-scale tasks, for enterprise-level code bases, but we do see good results and promising results across the usage of these assistants across the globe. But in a supervised manner, right? I would like to really draw your attention towards the word supervised, because in this mode, the developers are still guiding and overseeing the agent's actions, right? They constantly review the code that gets generated. And sometimes, these agents tend to go into rabbit holes. And therefore, as a developer who's steering the agent, I, as a developer, steer the agent away from those rabbit holes so that it can stay on the right course, right? In fact, my colleague Brigitte, who's also a fellow Doppler member, recently wrote a memo on martinfowler.com on sharing some of these experiences about how to use supervised coding agents and what are some of the pitfalls and anti-patterns that she's seeing, right? Maybe we can ask some of our team to share the link for all of you to look at. As I mentioned earlier, right, we are talking about it as a supervised mode because we still believe that the developer has to look at what the code these agents are generating. And therefore, in the last version of the radar, last volume, we spoke about complacency with AI-generated code. And I think that's something to really, really watch out for. These agents can do a lot of changes across the code base in a very short span of time. And this can lead to a lot of complacency in not reviewing the code, but the call to action is that take control of what the agent is trying to do and review. I think that's the message, so that we can avoid the complacency with the AI generated code. You can see on the screen, these are all IDE based agents, Windsurf, Klein, and Cursor, but there are lots of other terminal based agents as well, like Aider, Claude Code, and Goose, right? So there's a lot of innovation out there. Pick your choose, and these are some of the ones that we wanted to highlight because these are the ones that we are using in our ecosystem.
I'll just echo to what Vanya shared in supervised agents one. I think the call out regarding to automation bias, it's so true. I think that's like once you start to I think that's worry about to say, hey, supervised agents can only help you produce code faster, not helping you actually provide produce better code. I think that's the one just to watch for. Yeah. Hand over to Nhi.
Thank you, May. The other thing that we are also publishing together in this volume is involving observability. So as Vaya mentioned, that the way that we come up with things is based on our conversations during our first phase, and we are observing quite a few beliefs that is talking about observability. What do we mean by involving observability? First of all, we moved the open telemetry from trial to adopt, and the open telemetry protocol now has become a sensible default that in the observability field. Many of the popular tools are supporting it, and it is already being very well known by the teams. And it also helps to unify the core concepts when it comes to observability. And the other thing is that we also have believed quite a few Grafana related products in this volume as well. There's one that later on Vaya is going to share about it. But of course, when it comes to observability, with the AI that is already, like boosting up, and we have like half of the beliefs are around AI. We're also observing from this edition, from past editions, that lots of beliefs that helping to make better observability for AI applications. I think last edition we believed weights and biases trace, which is helping to help with gathering, monitoring the AI applications, giving you the view of what prompt have you sent, what's the input, what's the output, what's the token that you have been consumed. And this edition, we are also the team from us also experienced with another tool called Aries Phoenix, which has a similar functionality, and also it supports basically many of the frameworks or platforms that you use to build AI applications, including LangChain, LangGraph, and Cron AI. And the other part of this is that weights and biases also publish a new tool or product called Wave. It goes beyond monitoring the AI application and trying to help you to come up with customized metrics for your AI applications, and actually also leverage LMs to actually help you analyze the product's data, the AI application's data, and give suggestion of how you can move and make it the product itself better. So we think that in this field, with all the various tools that they are maturing and popping up, the concepts and also fields that its Tego is also evolving as well. The other interesting tool that we also believe that this time is called Human Loop. This is actually a tool that trying to tackle, like it is called Human Loop. It is also the name, it reflects what it does very well. Like it's trying to loop human in the process of making AI application from, starting like evaluating whether the model or the application is doing whatever what you are doing, and helping human to be involved in a loop, and also provide tracing and monitoring and also alerting capability as well. So with all of this, we think that it is good that in the industry and the teams, and we are all paying a lot of attention on observability. And also this field is expanding and evolving, and lots of new things coming in. And also I think last edition, we also have a belief called Observability 2.0, which is actually trying to evolve the new concept of giving a new concept of how we see observability, what kind of data we are actually gathering from our applications. So yes, I think this trend is still going on and very interesting. Therefore, we actually have quite a lot of conversations about it and made it a theme for this edition. Yeah.
Following on to what we mentioned, of course, that's the first blip that is very much belonging to that evolving observability theme. As we all know, distributed tracing is an important pillar of observability as a whole, and Grafana Tempo is a high-scale distributed tracing backend. And as Ni mentioned, it supports the standard sensible default protocol open telemetry. The interesting thing about Grafana Tempo is that it is designed to be cost efficient. And the reason it's cost efficient is because it relies on object storage, right, for long-term trace retention and trace search. Now, we saw a lot of products and tools in this specific version which were backed by object storage, and Grafana Tempo is definitely one of them. And that's the reason, as I said earlier, that it's cost efficient, because it stores the trace data on object storage for long-term retention, right? Now, one interesting thing about Grafana Tempo, specifically if you use it with the other Grafana stack, right, which is Grafana Loki for logs and Grafana Alloy for collecting those logs and traces, is that it allows you to do metric generation within a span, right? Nee also mentioned about Observability 2.0, which sort of lays the focus on canonical logs, right? That you can have the trace, the log, the metric all in one canonical format. It's not exactly promoting that format, but Grafana Tempo, along with the other Grafana stack, allows you to look at what are the specific metrics that are relevant for that span, for that trace that we are looking at while we look at our distributed trace, right? And therefore, it allows you to look at specific metrics that matter for that specific span, and allows you to correlate with the logs and the metrics, which is a very cool feature in my opinion, because usually we have traces in one system and logs in another system and metrics in another. But if you're using Grafana Tempo, specifically with the other Grafana stack with Loki and Alloy, you can have a good correlation of your metrics and your logs with your traces, right? By default, Tempo uses a columnar block format called Apache Parquet. A lot of you might be from the data ecosystem and know that Apache Parquet is a format that's quite optimal for query performance. Therefore, now this trace data is available to be evaluated or viewed in any downstream system that supports Apache Parquet, right? So that's the cool thing about Tempo. You can use TraceQL. It's the query language that Grafana Tempo uses to execute queries on this format. And some of our teams are using Grafana Tempo, and therefore that's the reason it's in trial in the Google Cloud ecosystem, using MinIO for the object storage and OpenTelemetry SDKs for collecting the data, right? So very happy to put Grafana Tempo in trial. If you're looking for a reasonable distributed tracing backend, it's definitely a good choice. Now, next one is data product thinking. We are moving this to adopt. I would say that this concept of data product thinking has garnered a lot of interest following the release of the data mesh paradigm back in 2018, right? When Jamak wrote that iconic article on Martin's website about data mesh, about data as product, and she introduced the principles. And now we see that more and more organizations are embracing data product thinking for managing their data assets. And in this approach, we treat data as a product, where each data product has its own life cycle, it has own quality standards that are associated with it, and it entirely focuses on meeting the consumer needs, right? Making the data available in the format, in the shape that the consumers require, right? For example, if I'm a consumer and I need my data in a GraphQL format, then the data product developers make sure that that data is available as a GraphQL format. If it's a JDBC connection that I need, my data is available as a JDBC output port, right? So the format in which the data is exposed is very much driven by how the consumer is going to consume that data in, right? And the interesting thing about this approach is this technique is it is achieved by working backwards from a use case, right? Where data product teams understand and prioritize the consumer needs. They try to guarantee the service level objectives and agreements. These service level objectives are upheld over a period of time with the help of publishing these quality indicators, so that the data product consumers can trust the data product insights, right? In the traditional systems, we have seen that the insights getting generated out of the data ecosystem are not generally trusted, because it's hard to believe that the data that's there is rightly preserved, the lineage is proper, the integrity is proper, and therefore data product thinking, with the help of publishing these quality metrics, assures that the consumers can trust the data and the insights getting generated on top of that data. In this approach, we also talk about capturing business relevant and technical metadata in modern data catalogs like Data Hub from LinkedIn. It's an open source data catalog, Colibra, and there are many, many more. And now we see that a lot of our teams, and of course externally as well, are applying data product thinking to scale even the AI initiatives, right? When we talk about building AI systems, they are as good as the data that they are trained on. And data product thinking serves as a big step in making your organization scale AI initiatives by building AI ready data. And last but not the least, I would say that regardless of whichever architecture paradigm your organization chooses, whether it's a data mesh, a lakehouse, or a traditional data platform, we recommend that you follow data product thinking for building data products to build data products that please your consumers and not just build capabilities.
And the next one is actually, I think I like it, I quite like it, because in my early stage as a developer, I spent quite some time writing Cucumber BDD testings, and not saying that now AI can help us to replace this type of work, but we do find that AI can really help us to empower the UI testing, especially for manual exploratory testings. So in this edition, we are also have observed, and the team also have also reported quite a few, beliefs and also tools or platforms helps with, AIs that is fine-tuned to be able to manipulate browsers. And you can give AI a certain script or a instruction, say, hey, go on to this website and type in something, and then AI will also go there and help you to actually perform those actions, and then therefore being able to perform the testing itself. When it comes to this area, and we have found that basically there are two categories of toolings in this to help with this AI-empowered UI testing. One is leading by, we found there are two platforms, which is QA Tag and Kana AI, which we can post the links later, that they are specifically designed for this type of tasks. Right, so they fine tune the LMs, and to actually they also create a platform that you can go on and come up with your scripts. It's not per se a script, but it's more of instructions for AI to go on to do certain things. And then you can also save all those steps or scripts in like a job manner and integrate with your CI/CD pipeline. And then the AI will also be, acting like what our QA folks were doing, like more or less like exploratory testing of what of your applications. The other set of tools that we are also seeing that it's more granular, right? It's not really specifically designed for solving AI empowered UI testing, but it also what it does is that it provides multiple models as a foundation and combine with frameworks like Playwright to be able to manipulate pages on the browser. It can also jump through different tabs and then perform certain actions there. And we found this tool also quite interesting. There is a leading tool here called browser use that we have evaluated in this edition as well. This could also be a very interesting tool that we can utilize to create this kind of UI testing for us to test our web-based applications. I believe some of the toolings also support mobile and desktop applications, and so it is definitely worth checking out. One thing to be mindful, this is still, as you can see, is the technique itself is still in assess. We haven't really got, it's just people training out. It's not sophisticated yet. And with our current evaluation, looks like AI-empowered UI testing provides many benefits, like it gives you flexibility, it is fast, it is working more or less what our QA is doing, and more human-like behavior. It is simulating what our end user, real user could do with our applications, right? But then of course, there's also some limits, like we shouldn't use AI empowered UI testing to replace what we're already doing with, the typical BDD, the typical, integration test, a unit test. And it is not designed to do very domestic tests. It is meant for behaving like human, behaving like users, right? So it's more like it can give you some flex. It's not quite stable, or it's not very can be very flakiness. So also you will, in order to test some, for example, privileged functionalities, you will need to grant it privileged access as well. So there is also a security aspect that you need to consider before applying this type of testing into your work. So I think that this is an interesting and fun approach we should explore, and also consider whether that's something that we can try in our project. But do remember that this is not something that we are looking for to replace what we are already been doing with, like code-based testing that is already mature and quite useful for us to find out very detailed and also getting stable results of those tests. Yeah, and then the next blip is also related to testing, which is quite an interesting tool that we have come across called MailSlope. So the context of why we need this tool was we were working on a project that is helping to make the user's onboarding process better. And then as you can see, that it involves lots of like testing with emails and testing, like creating multiple accounts at once to actually to either that's for manual testing or for stakeholders to try out or for internal training. And so how to create many, temporary emails for those testing, and also how to test the emails becomes the problem that we face. I believe if any of you have already, tested with email, writing tests with email, you'll find it quite painful because different email servers, they have different APIs, and then you need to create them. You also need to maintain kind of a test email account and share it across your teams, and also share the passwords across your teams, right? So it's both time consuming of testing them and also provide some security concerns in those as well. We use the tools like temp email service, which give you a temporary email and can valid for, let's say, half or 1 hour, and you can test it. But we also found it has some limits that you can always only create one email at a time, and also change it and it expires after a while. And if you also want to restrict, email domains for your particular, let's say, QA or staging environment, such temp email services cannot really help you to do that. So we discovered this tool, MailSlope. What it does is it provides a set of RESTful API as well as a dashboard that you can use to create inbox or email accounts. And also it supports testing with text, phone, same messages as well. But we tested with email mostly. What we really like is that it provides sets of the RESTful API, which is quite useful for us. It also provides a set of SDKs that for different languages and frameworks that you can use to write it into your code, and then really automate the process of creating email, checking email, creating accounts, so on and so forth. It also supports providing a custom email domain so that you can restrict your access per environments as well. So we quite like it. And the other thing is that it also provides a UI, a dashboard. If you are also like you want to expose some functionality or ability for your QAs or business stakeholders, they can also use this UI or dashboard to actually use this tool. So this is something that we have already used and quite like it. If you're also like having, the same struggle that we have with testing with emails, this is a tool that worth checking out.
All right. Turbo Buffer. I would say this is one of my favorite blips, full disclosure. I brought this to the conversation and I had to defend it. Nee would remember that it got culled in the initial conversation and I had to sort of fight back to bring it back on, but I'm really happy to talk about it. While AI, of course, 50% beliefs are AI related. So while AI is front and center, for both using it for software development, right? We spoke about supervised coding agents, AI-powered UI testing, and many, many more things. There are also AI-powered applications, right? But one common pattern across both these use cases, whether we are building AI-powered applications or we are using AI-powered coding assistants, right? One thing that's common across these is the concept of embedding, right? And the concept of vector search. In the past volumes as well, we have highlighted various vector databases, and this blip pretty much falls in the same category. And as I said, one of my favorites. So TurboPuffer is a serverless multi-tenant search engine that seamlessly integrates vector and full text search on object storage. Yet another solution or a product that's built on top of object storage. And it's an object storage first storage engine. I think that's from a search perspective, it's quite novel in its design choice and architecture, right? Just to understand search, right? It's not a transactional system where you need low latency, but you definitely need the search queries to result or get result in less than 100 milliseconds or so. So it's not transactional, but it doesn't have the privilege of like a big warehouse where you can take some time to respond to queries, right? So it has a different use case altogether. And I think with an object storage based model and optimizations that TurboPuffer team has done on top of itself, it's a fantastic architecture in my opinion. As I said earlier, it's an object storage first storage engine. That means that is the source of truth. There are three broad components in its design. Object storage for state, then there is an NVMe SSD for caching, and then there are stateless query nodes. I think these query nodes are written in Rust and they are stateless entirely. And as a search engine, TurboPuffer focuses on durability, scalability, and cost efficiency. And of course, given the fact that it uses object storage, it uses it for not just state, but also to maintain the write ahead log, right? So as soon as you commit or write to this specific engine, it is also visible in the subsequent search that you do, right? It's extremely optimal for high scale search workloads. It can scale easily to billions of vectors, across millions of tenants and namespaces. What really caught my eye was a beautiful line on their website which said, now search every byte in your organization, right? So if you're really looking for high scale vector search or full text search for tons and tons of data, I think this is a fantastic choice to look at. Another interesting thing about this is, especially in the realm of vector databases, right? There is a trade-off between query latency and accuracy, right? One interesting thing about TurboPuffer is that it samples 1% of its queries for continuous recall measurement. So what's a recall? Recall as a metric mean that if you were to do a full exhaustive search for, matching your query with the vectors that you have in your database, embeddings that you have in your database, how many of them would result or how many of them would come up, the ratio in when you're doing an approximate neighbor search using a vectorized index, right? Like ANN for that matter, right? So that's recall. And TurboPuffer out of the box delivers approximately 90 to 95% recall for the first top 10 results, right? So that's a pretty good metric in my opinion, while we are building AI-based systems like retriever augmented generation systems and all, right? So this continuous recall measurement for 1% of their live traffic makes me believe that they are really, really passionate about how retrieval, the R in the RAG is sort of treated. And as I said earlier, it's suitable for large scale document retrieval, vector search, and retrieval augmented generation based AI applications. TurboPuffer right now is only available through invitation, or you have to reach out with your use case, and they only support select customers. So that's why we have put it in assess. But just to say that if you remember, we spoke about Cursor, one of the AI assistants in the first theme that uses TurboPuffer as its vector search, right? So it's already dealing with large scale billions and billions of documents and billions of vectors and indexes, and therefore extremely promising technology in my opinion, something to watch out for, and that's the reason it's in assess.
So Vanya talked about supervised agents for coding as a theme in the beginning, right? So I think right now everybody is kind of trying out, different tools and models to see how AI can help us with coding and coding assistance. But at the same time, while the model itself is improving the IDEs, which is providing better prompt for us to really generate better codes, at the same time, we also need to think about how can we make the context better for model for AI as coding assistance to really provide us, good generated code generations. So this is why we come across and talked about AI-friendly code design. It's something that is still in the early stage that there is no, for example, concrete advices or very concrete patterns that, for example, architecture patterns or coding patterns or code-based structure patterns that works best for AI. There is no concrete advice in this area still, but this is why it's still in SS. But in a nutshell, we already have, with our experiences and also the our sharings in the communicates, we also already can come up with a few suggestions or advices of how you can make the code design actually better for AI. What do we mean by better for AI? Is that AI can easily consume the context, understand it, as well as understanding what you are trying to do, and also what's your pattern in there, and what's your coding principles in there, and can follow those. Therefore, generate codes that fits to your needs, and also fits to your architecture as well. The other thing that it also can help to help AI to generate code that has less bugs, has less errors, and it also knows what you really care about testing, what you really care about your business, speaking your business language, speaking your business domain as well. Therefore, you can use AI to generate the code that has better maintenance capability and also has less, issues that in future. We also think that currently the normal kind of advices or practices that we are doing for human to actually create better code still applies in here. For example, we believed Cupid before, and also dry case. This also applies into AI. The whole thing with those practice before is to help humans to actually better understand the code. The team work together to produce a maintainable code base. So those principles still apply in here. Apart from that, we also have noticed that, for example, we should be keeping the files short instead of long, so that you can maintain the context for AI to actually understand it. Also provide meaningful names instead of clever names, right? So that AI can also really grasp what you are doing. The other thing that AI works better with patterns. So if you have like either that's naming patterns or coding patterns or design patterns that you can utilize and can use and apply, the AI can also quickly get it and follow your patterns, therefore generate better codes. This is also how you can really help to structure your code base, make it easier for AI to understand. The other thing worth noticing is that we kind of discussed about whether we should call this belief machine sympathy code design, right? So how you can actually either that's your data itself or your architecture diagram or anything like that, you can make it machine readable, so that AI can also quickly get what it is about. We also have another tool, which is diagram as code. We're going to talk about it later. But yeah, so this is also about how you can make your artifacts or your data have the metadata designed in there. You use code as much as possible so that AI can really get it. There was also some discussion regarding how we should, how would this change our version control system? We still think that version control is still necessary, of course, but then we said about before we should have some disciplines about how do we make Git commits, right? This also applies. If you want AI to help you to create bad code to actually make it better, then some disciplines about version control. How do you create branches? How do you commit, structure your Git commits messages is also quite useful in here. The other is that also write meaningful comments on describing exactly what this is doing, and also provide logs. No matter that's the information log or error log, this also helps AI to understand and follow your patterns in there. In terms of which kind of architecture style works better for AI, there is no concrete conclusion yet. There is a layer, there's a modularized, there is a pipeline, there is like event-based different types of architecture. We tried various of it, but we haven't come up with any concrete conclusion of which types of architecture actually works better with AI. More friendly with AI. So this is space we need to be conscious and keep looking into it, and hopefully we can, evolve this and then get better, concrete advices in here. Yeah. And then next one, there are two very small tool beliefs that I found interesting. The first one is D2. D2 is a tool for diagram as code. It's similar with what we have with Mermaid, but it provides a declarative syntax that our team really like. And it's also very straightforward, and it also provides various of different diagram styles and different shapes that you can use. And also you can customize the colors together when you define those shapes. It's very useful and also very easy to use. What we also really like about this, because of the declarative syntax, are also easy to understand. With a writing age, it provides more detailed customizations for your diagram. If you have used Mermaid before, it provides a set of predefined diagram types and use it underneath those contexts. But D2 is something else. You can actually create your own set. It's similar with that you are using Draw.io to draw the diagrams on a canvas, but instead you are doing this with as code. So this is why we really like it and particularly tried it, and it is quite useful. The other thing in this area is still with AI. So there are also many like a few AI toolings for you to generate diagrams. And also this is one type of tooling that is also coming up. The other is that we can actually leverage AI to generate, for example, Mermaid code or D2 code. So this is also another practice or trend that architects is trying to practice with when it comes to diagram as code. The other interesting tool is called JSON Crack. As the name suggests, it cracks JSON for you. So if you are dealing like very complex contracts, or you're working in the industry, for example, in medical industry and healthcare industry, that you need to follow, those protocols like FAIR or DICOM Web, and then when you retrieve like large JSON objects, sometimes it will be very useful if you can visualize those JSON, what is inside this JSON, or different types of objects in this JSON, and also explore from there, and also be able to look into it in detail, have some kind of visualization, not only helpful for developers, but also helpful when you talk with businesses, right? So JSON Crack is a tool that we came across and found it useful. It provides with a VS Code extension. It also has a long online tooling that you can use. The online tooling also supports of transforming different, YAML, other types of files into JSON as well. But mentioning about online tooling, be mindful of not putting your product data into those online tooling to, although it's useful to use, but be mindful of not putting your production data in there. The other thing is that we tried the JSON Crack VS Code extension, currently cannot handle quite let's say you have like over thousands lines of JSON lines of code in the JSON file. It might break with super large JSON files, but for normal size, like it can handle it quite well. With the online one, it should be better than the VS Code extension. So yeah, that's two small tools that I come across.
Awesome. So that's the last blip for the for this sneak peek webinar. I would say that there's a lot of growing concern, on how AI, because now it's commoditized, right? It has sort of lowered the barrier for a lot of people to build applications, wiring together APIs, and a lot of platforms out there which allow you to build agentic workflows and so on and so forth. But there's also a growing concern on how this can accelerate shadow IT, right? We saw that with low code, no code in the past. So with AI as well, we can probably, hit a point where there can be proliferation of AI generated apps, small apps, opening up attack vectors, and, dispersing enterprise data across some of these small apps, right? But in my opinion, we are at a juncture in this new era where should we nip the bud too much in its infancy? And therefore, my answer to that, my personal opinion on this is that we need a more guardrailed way of doing these experiments. And this specific platform that you see on your screen, OpenWeb UI, is right into that alley, right? So OpenWeb UI is an open source, self-hosted AI platform. It has a versatile feature set. It supports OpenAI compatible APIs and integrates with model providers like OpenRouter and Grok Cloud. And there are many others that it supports. One interesting thing about OpenWeb UI is that it can run entirely offline, right? That means it can run on your local laptop, can point to your locally hosted models with the help of OLAMA, right? So it can work without an internet altogether, right? So you can have an AI platform working in your laptop. OpenWeb UI, as I mentioned, it has a large and diverse feature set. It has an inbuilt capability for doing RAG, right? That means it allows users to interact with local as well as web-based documents in a chat-driven experience, right? So you upload a document or you point your OpenWeb UI to a document on the web, and then you can chat with it like you have built a RAG-based engine on top of it, right? Because as I mentioned that you can deploy it at an enterprise level, it offers good granular role-based access control. That means you can have different capabilities of your AI platform open up for different user groups, so that you can control who is using what and in what capacity. This platform is also extensible. You can extend the capabilities of the platform with the help of something called as functions. These functions are nothing but Python-based building blocks that can customize what OpenWeb UI can do for you. Another interesting feature for OpenWeb UI is model evaluation. A lot of times what happens is that model creators, right, they publish benchmarks, but then we cannot directly trust the benchmarks published by the model providers because we have to use that model for our given use case, right? Because models would behave differently given the context in which they are used and what's the data that we are supplying and many, many variable factors, right? So with OpenWeb UI, you can set up a model arena, right? Where you can compare a same prompt against multiple models, right? Whatever the models that you want to test for your given use case, right? I think that's a pretty cool feature because then you can take a decision based on which model works better, agnostic of what the model providers or model creators publish as benchmarks for your given use case, right? So think of it like a side-by-side comparison of multiple models and checking their responses. As I mentioned earlier, you can install Web UI in multiple modes, right? You can install it locally as your own personal assistant, completely working offline, pointing and talking to your locally hosted models with the help of OLAMA. You can host it at a team level where it can act like a team assistant and act as a good collaboration between various team members of a product team that's working on a common project. Or you can install it at an enterprise level, right? At an entire organization where you can create specific groups to allow access to specific user groups for certain functionalities. And I think it's an excellent way to allow your organization people to do safe experimentation in the guardrails of what your organization is allowing, right? What models are allowed to be used for what use cases, and Open Web UI is a fantastic answer for all of those aspects. In fact, one of our customers has already set up Open Web UI as an enterprise AI platform, and we're waiting to see how that progresses in the next 6 months. And that's the reason it's an assess, but I'm really, really looking forward to how this expands in the future. But if you're really looking for an open source AI platform that you can self-host, do check out Open Web UI.
Thank you, Wanya, Ni share the insight. I think this is really interesting because from all the themes and beliefs shared so far, we can definitely feel like to say the impact of AI has well go beyond code generation. So we heard that the AI, how does that actually impact around testing? So UI, AI empowered UI testing. So UI testing is not something new, but actually with LLM, as empowered, so it certainly actually make it super useful because one use case that I think of is actually to say that can certainly help us testing those legacy applications. No one knows what actually it actually does. I think that is a useful case. I think the other need talk about AI, to say the AI-friendly code design. So that was a really interesting one for me as well, because that reminds me, one of the report I've seen on GitHub, they actually have talking about to say, since the code assistant in introductions, they have seen around 15% increase of the pull request merge rate. I just like to say, hey, is that a good thing, or is that just because people start to just trust AI too much without actually reviewing the code? It's just too much into that space. I think that is definitely interesting. I think that triggers another question around to say that will certainly has an impact regarding to our existing practice, because all our current practice is built on top with people in the center. So now it is changing from people in the center to people and machine collaboration. So how will that change? I think that will be definitely, it's really, really interesting. Yeah, I think apparently from what we have heard so far, we definitely, the message is just to say, it's definitely useful. We say it's very promising, but as it's at this stage, just don't do just it's still a trust but verify. If we're not talking about zero trust at this stage. All right. Let's moving on to Q&As. So thank you everyone for posting your question here. So the first question I'm actually going to hand over to Wanya to talk about data products. The first one is around what's your insight about data governance and related challenges, especially when an organization just started the journey?
Yeah, that's a good question. So Vimal, data governance is a broad concept, right? It has multiple facets associated with it, right? Like data quality, data discoverability, data lineage, data provenance, and data access control, data, and so on and so forth, right? So governance is a very loaded concept, and there is no one size for any organization. It totally depends upon your journey, on where you are and what are the top struggles that you are dealing with in your ecosystem to focus as a starting point. But in my experience so far, I have seen that starting off with a data catalog, right? Data discoverability comes as a very strong challenge, right? The data in your organization is sort of spread across business units and departments, and it's very hard to find. And therefore, having one common way in which you can access and look at what data is available, what data sets are available in your organization, in a way that you can understand what is the value proposition of that data set, right? What is the meaning of the fields in that data set? Who owns that data set? If we can solve some of these challenges as a starting point, it can be a great step in building that culture of data product thinking and solving some of the governance challenges as well, right? As I said, no one size fits all, but in my personal opinion, having a good data discoverability in your ecosystem as a starting point can sequentially pave the way for adding more and more functionalities as we mature, right? So think about investing, or think about setting up data catalogs which help you do this cataloging of your data assets in a consistent way for your data consumers to be able to search and use them.
Thank you, Wanya. I think I'll just look at the questions. Thank you, still popping that one, but I think we're a bit of a running short of time. We might be able to just have time to answer one more questions. So I'll pick the question. It's actually around Rahul's question around, like to say, based on the trends we're seeing in the tech radar, how do we see the software delivery practice evolving based on what we understand so far? Like Ni and Vanya, I'm pretty sure you have a lot of opinion.
Me, go for it. I'll add after you.
Okay, thank you. I think yes, it's definitely going to change. We are actually at the center of involving our delivery practices, starting from like UI design to business analysis to developing to QA to infrastructure, everything, right? So it's definitely going to change. And I think we are still at the stage of finding out how can we really be able to companion with AI to actually make it like a assistant that really understands us and works as what we want to really achieve, which is why we have this UI AI friendly code design that actually talks specifically about how we can use it to better help AI for coding as a coding assistant. The other thing I think that that's something that have already been experienced quite a lot, that how can AI help us with the business analysis work, that internally we have run a few workshops of trying, hey, we give AI the context of the requirements, the product vision, everything. And the AI can help us to break down them into meaningful stories. And we tried it as something quite useful and quite meaningful, interesting as well. Of course, every time you ask it, it creates different stories, right? So it's not stable, but still it can give you can give our BAs a good foundation to work on. That's something that we already tried a lot. And what else? I think the other thing is we also have a tool called V0 this time. It actually can generate front-end code based on a design, a UI design that you have, which is also quite useful for if you want to run a POC. And this is something that can quickly, give you the working example of the POC, and then you can make decision on whether that's something you're going to invest on. But still, with toolings like this, we still need to be mindful of POC is still a POC. It needs to evolve. And whether that's something that can be maintainable and stay as a production code, we still have question mark on it. There's also some voice in the community saying that every time I can generate a new front end, I don't need to maintain it anymore. But I think that's very aggressive opinion right now. But still, I think it will definitely change, every aspects of how we do software delivery.
Do we
Thank
have
you.
time to add one last nugget on the same question?
Yeah, just go.
Yeah, sure. I think I'm a believer of that everything that's new, right? That's going through a lot of transformation. And that's exactly what's happening with the software development space, right? It's going through huge amount of transformation. I don't think we have a way to say that what are the good practices or best practices now. I think it's going to be a journey. And therefore, in that journey, we have to watch out for what works well at this point of time, right? And therefore, keep our eyes open for what's new, what's great, and what's not working so well, right? Trust the existing practices. I mean, I'm still a firm believer that good programming practices like modular, clean code, which Ni also covered in AI-friendly code design, is not going to go away, right? At least in the next foreseeable future. So keep trust on your existing good practices and see how to use them with these new transformations that are coming in. Be skeptical about what's coming up, but also keep open for what's the possibility out there, right? And one very important aspect is don't just think about AI for just coding, but think about AI for the entire software value chain, from research, planning, designing your systems to even observing your systems, right? So not just for coding and testing and generation, but the entire life cycle. That's how we should think about software delivery in the future. AI first.
Thank you, Vanya. I think it's time for us to wrap this up. So thank you everyone for exploring this with us and actually share your questions. So thank you, Ni and Vanya, for taking us through the interesting insight of the blades and themes for volume 32. So just as a reminder, volume 32 Tech Radar is releasing on 2nd April. Watch out for that. Thank you very much. See you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.